Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. So today's video, I wanted to talk about something that we know is inevitable and we know might be coming in a specific sense, and that is year 2 content and how it'll be dropping and what kind of value I feel this needs to provide for a community that has been waiting, lost its patience, felt abandoned, but is now willing to give the game a second and a third chance. And thankfully, as fortunate as these developers, and the publishers and the designers got, a lot of games that were slated to come out in at least Q1, Q2 eventually got moved all the way to the fall. I think the fall is going to be so competitive, the Division 2 will have to make serious moves in the spring and in the summer in order for it to keep its player base still engaged. Now, its player base will probably go play some other games, but will eventually come back for the grind and, making sure that they're up to date with new things that are coming. And this is not necessarily just about year 2. This is about year 2 probably being paid content in the game. And the probability is high because they did say that year 1 was going to be free. And so for year 1, what was all contained in this particular year for, people who didn't pay for the season pass and people who paid for the season pass. So let's look at it. If you paid for the season pass, you got early access, you got, specializations already unlocked for you without having to go through a lot of the rigmarole of, trying to meet these requirements. And you also got yourself classified missions. So there are missions that are available to you that are not available to everybody else. I think each episode came with 2 classified missions, so probably coming with a total of 6 missions that are just all exclusive to you. Now, was this a good value? I don't think so. I don't think that this was worth the money that people paid if you compare it to the Division 1, where we got survival and underground, and I think we got an incursion as part of that, season pass. I think Dragon's Nest was a part of it. Maybe not. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, for you to look at that content and look at the content that we got for year 1 pass, and say the value was, definitely not it. I think it goes to, signal to the developers that, hey, year 2 has got to provide a lot of value for everyone. I mean, everyone has got to feel like there is something worth being paid for here in this year 2 pass. And we're going to line them up and outline them and see that these criteria actually be met. Now, for those people, let's start with the raid. This second raid that, was talked about as something that might be coming in episode 3, that the developers eventually decided to push back, we kind of sense that that's probably going to be coming in year 2. Now, the very first thing right out the door for this particular paid content is that if the developers want to actually push a lot of copies of this year 2, they have to give the raid matchmaking. I know many of you hardcore players, everybody talking about how, you can go find groups everywhere. You're saying, oh, people can go find groups. It's going to be a disaster. Let me tell you something. If you want to pay paychecks, if you want to, take care of your developers and your designers, you've got to make the business decision that's going to move copies of the game. The hard-headedness of Raid Operation Dark Hours, which they could have chalked up to saying that was free content, that might not fly if we're going to be paying for that content that comes with the raid. Now, the raid could be free. And at that point, they could decide not to put any matchmaking or even a discovery mode, which could be fine. But if they're asking for players to pay for it, think about the percentage of players who have not been able to complete the first raid, and think about that percentage of players who didn't even touch the raid because they just looked at the matchmaking system as not being there and said, I don't want to go through the complications. If I paid for the game, I want to enjoy the convenience of the matchmaking system that's already available. So that's one thing that I feel like will move copies. Like I said, they don't have to do it, but they're going to lose out on leave money on the table if they don't do it. And trust me, even for those who are saying, oh, you can go on Discord and stuff, you actually need more people in the game playing the raids, because it'll be really convenient for you not to spend 45 minutes looking for a raid team. This is coming from somebody who has a Discord that at one point we had about 1,000+ people in the Discord at the time when the raids were actually going on. There were about 800 people at one point, and sometimes there'll be as much as 200-300 people online on different platforms on the Gamey Daddy Discord. So I'm saying this because I'm trying to look at things from both angles. It's nice to have a perspective in that angle, but also you want to kind of look and say, okay, let me put myself in somebody else's shoes and actually assess the situation from that. And I know many of us, especially those of you who are audience members, we disagree heavily on this, and I can understand your position as well. I'm just saying, what's going to bring in more players, what's going to bring in more money, perhaps that's probably where a compromise needs to be made. Let's shelve that for now. Let's move on to something else. The very next thing that I feel like we'll probably need to come out with this year 2 content is going to definitely have to be something along the lines of a mission structure or content structure that has replayability, challenge changes, and all kinds of fun stuff. Now, Underground and Survival were the markers that we pointed to. Every time we said we would like Underground, we would like Survival, they need to bring those things back. But to be very honest, I don't know in what form those things are going to come back. Perhaps they might come back. But what if they don't come back? Then what would the alternative be? The alternative will have to be missions that actually have that same kind of variation, or missions that will lead you into a place where you deal with factions and the so-called, according to Drew, more hunters, that are probably going to be coming very soon in the game, and something that you can go back and play over again, challenge yourself, and will also be very rewarding to go through. A lot of people have said survival was not, if you look at the percentage of people who extracted in survival, it wasn't really a lot of people. And the reason is too obvious to miss. Number one, survival took you from anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour if you weren't speed running it. And then at the end of the day, the rewards were highly subjective and weren't there. So what's the incentive for a person to go spend 45 minutes and have permadeath and at the same time, not get any reward that they were looking for? Till this day, I probably played maybe 10, 15 survivals. I didn't play too much. And the reason I didn't do that was because I could not get the urban MDR from there. I was better off doing missions to get my MDR. I was better off doing, all kinds of other incursions to most likely get my exotics, because survival was not giving me the things that I actually, was looking for. This is a looter shooter. We play to get the best loot. So when I played survival, all those times, I only played it just for the enjoyment and for the satisfaction. But at the end of the day, you want to get loot that's relevant to you. So that's the mission structure that probably needs to come out. And that's what we always say, replayability needs to be the main factor behind or underneath content like this. And then finally, when you look at the way these mission structures have to come, you also have to look at, the aspect of community, community development and, things that work for different aspects of the community and things that bring in nostalgia. And I think, in my opinion, this will most likely have to be incursions. So you bring in some kind of replayable content. Maybe you do an underground type deal. DC has a lot of underground areas. Oh, maybe we go to New York. Oh my gosh, that'd be really cool. And then maybe we get something of a survival type deal that's in the open world itself. They build an open world map of maybe Brooklyn, of maybe a portion of maybe Park Avenue, a place that was not open up in Manhattan, and we have that to do some kind of a survival type run, and we can do that over and over from time to time. You put some really cool exotics there that people can get, and then we start looking at other things like incursions within DC. And I understand that people have said, incursions, what do they really accomplish? One of the things that I do know about Massive is incursions provide, this very mini gameplay for a small select number of players to coordinate and accomplish a task. They can make the incursions as creative as even Stolen Signal, which everybody will tell you is the best incursion so far in the entire division history. In fact, Stolen Signal is, in my opinion, better than Operation Dark Hours. Whoever had the concept for that needs to continue building those kinds of concepts in small quantities, allowing players to be able to explore and enjoy the mechanics that were that are available and the mechanics that were actually there. So you put these things in place. You put in incursions, you put in replayable mission structure that's very rewarding, and even a raid that has an accommodation for everybody to be able to get in on it. I think you have yourself a season pass that people can say will be happy to pay you for. And then you also have to, somehow, make your season pass holders, feel appreciated. And I have to say this, People have said, oh, I want my money back and all that stuff. To be very honest, gamers, you knew or didn't know what you were paying for when you paid for the year one pass. So that spending is on us. I bought the gold edition, so it was our bad. We should have held our money and looked and said, let me know what this season pass is about first before making those purchases. I know it's a part that nobody wants to talk about, but you know, this is the part where I go every day smacking myself in the face. And a lot of gamers have said, you know, never again am I going to do that. But if they want to pull those players back, then they need to do something along the lines of saying, and I'm not going to go as crazy as I want to go, but let's say perhaps a discount for the season pass holders, or maybe even a discount for ultimate gold edition holders. And I put gold in there because I bought the gold edition. And this, in my opinion, will probably bring a lot of people back and say, you know what, okay, I'll be happy to take a discount. And I also want to play some of New York or some of this new content. And I think this is definitely something that we're going to see a very solid, base just rally around. So there are steps that they need to take. You know, I know they're going to be changing the gear. I know they're going to be touching PvP later down the road, but there are also a lot of things right now that they can continue to work on that will continue to keep the current player base. And then as they get this player base, you know, in place, they can then start to see if they can attract the current player base into the new PvP changes, and then even start to try bringing the old PvP community back together. Anyways, that's my little video. I feel like these ideas are something that was just, you know, really heavy on my mind. Reading comments, talking to people in the community. People want things like this in the Division 2, and they want them to, you know, be solid, and they want them to be communicated in one form or the other. So let me hear what you think in the comment section. Thank you for your time and audience. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys have been really cool. Even though the Division is in a drought phase, you guys still click these videos, and you guys, you know, continue to encourage me, and I do appreciate you guys so much. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.